How do you make co-working work? The way we work is constantly shifting and changing. Companies, entrepreneurs, and individuals are moving to co-working facilities. By 2022, over 5 million people will be working in co-working facilities. In this series, we're going to explore how to make co-working work for you. Hey, hi, Mel Mitchell here, and welcome again to Co-working with Mel. Today we're meeting with Josh Guthrie, the CTO of Notified. Now, if you've ever wondered, how do you go from being an individual contributor to being a senior leader, you're going to learn about that today. Also, if you want to understand how do you manage your team in a co-working facility, guess what? We're going to touch on that at the same time. So again, welcome to Co-working with Mel, and come check us out. Thanks. Today we're having a conversation with Josh Guthrie of Notified, and he is the CTO, yes. Correct? CTO? Yes. And so we're just going to have, again, just a conversation. That's what we do here. And again, this is the focus of these conversations is to help you be able to master co-working, right? Because co-working is something new. Tell me a little bit about like your role and your company and what you guys do, really.
Sure, I'll start by telling you a little bit about Notified. So Notified, what we do is we help home healthcare companies recover lost revenue opportunities. Okay. What that means is when you're a patient and you're trying to get care at home, you work with a company to find clinicians who can come out to your home or to your school and maybe help with your kid or yourself. Right. Just depends on your situation, but on average, companies are only realizing about 85% of that revenue potential. And there's a couple of reasons for that, but the primary reason is that there's a communication breakdown between the back office for the company and the distributed clinician workforce, okay, which actually comes to your house. And we have a couple of guys that I work with, the CEO and our account executive. They've worked in the home healthcare industry for over 15 years, and specifically with schedulers and clinicians, and so they know this problem really well. So what they did is they decided to build a technology solution that allows healthcare companies and their schedulers to mass communicate in real time to their clinician workforce to try to staff these jobs more quickly, right, and easily and securely. So there's a lot of security requirements and regulations around healthcare confidentiality or patient confidentiality and stuff like that. So that's basically what we do.
Okay, and so essentially, like if I'm understanding correctly, so it used to be like a one-to-one, or I have to call you, or send individual folks text messages or an email to get them, but now they can just...
Right, so the way that I've described it to people is, I don't know if you've had this experience, but I had this experience where if I have a dentist appointment or a doctor appointment, the way that they get in touch with me, even just to confirm appointment, is to either call or they send me a text that says type C to confirm or no to cancel, right? And that's basically the modern way of scheduling for you to come into a dentist office or to a doctor visit. Now imagine that you're a healthcare company and you've got many locations, 10s, 20s locations, and you've got 5 to 10 schedulers, maybe even more, per location, and then you've got who knows how many clinicians that you work with to actually get the job done. They're using the exact same techniques. They're sending emails and text messages and phone calls, and those aren't secure channels for communicating information. So you have to be kind of cryptic and you say, hey, I've got a job. Are you interested? Call me for more details. And so there's just a lot of back and forth going on between the back office and the workforce. So what we provide is just an app that can be installed on the clinicians' phones, and we integrate directly with the software solutions that healthcare companies are already using. Right. And what that allows them to do is, instead of making 10 phone calls or sending 10 emails and getting back 100 responses or whatever, they go through and just select who they want through the interface. So they select like 10 clinicians, let's say, or 20 clinicians, and it sends out a message in real time to all of them. They all receive it on their mobile device, and they can hit a couple buttons to respond and let them know if they're interested or not.
Okay, excellent.
So it really speeds up the communication lines.
And tell me a little bit about your role.
Sure. So my role at the company as CTO is I help focus on technology efforts that attribute to top line revenue. So I'm looking at the product and the customers and saying, well, what problems could we be solving that would create enough value for them so that they could give some value back to us? And that's been my role here for well, the entire time I've been here. But I'm also doing a lot of the engineering and architecting and designing. And right now, just to give you an example, is I'm reviewing all our HIPAA compliance for security compliance.
That's exciting reading, huh?
Yeah, no, it's not. It's like, I think HIPAA compliance, the full Federal Register, where they actually wrote out the legislation or the regulations, is not. It's the regulations. It's something like 600 pages long, and it's like triple columned and type 8 font. It's quite a read.
It's a little painful there.
Yes.
Yeah. Thank you for doing that pain for us.
Sure,
Yeah,
no
we
problem.
appreciate it. And so previously to your role, right, you're a senior leader over engineering teams. And going from that role to your current role, what are some of the things that you've learned as a leader?
Oh, that's a great question. One, I like it.
Okay.
So I think a lot of people, they kind of stumble into management or leadership, and they learn if they like it or not.
Right.
I've always liked working with people. Even though I have a traditional software engineering background, I've always been the person in the room that kind of said, well, forget for a second that technology exists. Let's just talk about what's happening in the real world between people. And so I quickly learned that I had an itch to scratch when it came to dealing with people directly. And that was my first foray with management, is really just helping shape teams to be customer focused. And then over the years, I learned more about mentorship and developing people's careers and helping them align their professional lives with their personal lives. And that coincided with a ton of reading, reading people like Lencioni, John Maxwell, even classics like Dale Carnegie and stuff like that.
Okay.
So
yeah, we're in the same book club then.
Right,
Yeah,
exactly.
we need to start a co-working book club next.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
So.
And so let's just talk a little bit about your team and the way that you guys collaborate and work on projects. And since we're all here co-working together, so can you just tell us?
It's great. So the place I worked before, it's a much larger company, and so, and not only that, but the team I was on was not all co-located. So I had a peer that was in New York, and I had another peer that was in California. And then I had folks in North Carolina, Seattle, and then Dallas is where we were working. And that is just for a manager, that's like it's a full-time job, just making sure everybody's on the same page. And so I would say 90% of my time was spent on Slack, email, meetings, phone calls, one-on-ones. But now that I'm at this new opportunity, everybody's co-located. It's very intimate. We sit across from each other every single day. So I actually told the people I work with just recently, is like, it's weird just how little I have to rely on technology now to communicate. It's been amazing.
Wow.
So much better feeling, especially for me, because I'm a people person. Yeah. So I like looking people in the face and being able to read them easily. And
So kind of going old school is a good thing for new business, to grow your business, by having those old school conversations across from each other.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I think that technology is a double-edged sword. You got to know how to wield it. And I definitely believe in the sardine effect. Do you know what the sardine effect is?
No, tell us.
The sardine effect is if you are having problems getting people to communicate or just work together, one trick you can use is to force them into the smallest room possible to work on a problem.
Right.
It just creates a necessary closeness and intimacy, and it might be kind of rough, but you get past those hurdles very quickly, and you don't give people the excuse to spread out and not communicate. Okay. So
it sounds like you would say, from you guys working together across from each other, your productivity has gone up.
Yeah, absolutely.
As compared to other teams you've worked on.
Yeah, it has to, because when you're sitting in that close proximity, you're hearing everything that's said. If you choose to be in the conversations, I suppose. Right. But it's very difficult for something that seems wrong or sounds wrong, or is maybe misinformed. Maybe if you had been a part of the conversation, you could have helped course correct something. That those things don't go unnoticed, so you don't have to rewind all the time. Right? Someone makes a decision based off bad information, you find out, so you have to help them rewind the clock and then move it forward the right way. That happens much less frequently when you're all sitting across from each other and you can't help but help each other.
Right. And curious, so glad to hear that you guys are working really well with each other here. Just curious, how are you connecting with the greater co-working community?
Yeah, okay, that's a good question. So that's actually been one thing that I've been very pleasantly surprised with. I've never worked in a communal workspace,
Right.
and I've met people out of necessity. So one great thing about working in a shared workspace is if you have a question, you're surrounded by people who are having to ask those same questions most of the time, especially if you're in a let's say if you're in technology. Basically everybody's in technology today, and so there's a lot of common problems that people face with technology, and so you're much better off when you're not, let's say, constrained by your own local sphere, right? You've got 10, 20 people all trying to solve the same problems all around you, but disconnected from you. But reaching out to them is so much easier. So penetrating that and getting into their heads is extremely cost effective and reciprocated. So if I do something for you, you might do something for me, right? And it's just being a part of a family, essentially.
Yeah. And what advice would you give? Let's say there's another small company that says, hey, you know what, we're going to move into a co-working facility.
Right.
What advice would you give them and say, you know, these are 3 things that you should probably do right at the beginning when you start working in that space?
Get to know the people who manage the space.
Okay.
The reason I say that is because they're going to know everybody that comes in and out the doors.
Sure.
So if you're new, if you're brand new, they're kind of your first go-to when it comes to trying to meet new people. You can tell them what you do. They're going to say, oh, you're kind of like this company or that company, and they can point you in the right direction. And that way you're not, most people that work for startups, I would say, probably are outgoing enough to just go and introduce themselves to most people. But if you're not that person, you can at least cut out, half of the work there and go directly to people who might help you. So that's definitely one thing. The other thing I'd say is find a space that works well for your team and try to hold on to that space as much as possible. If you come in early enough, you don't miss out on opportunities. But if you're thinking that you can start your days at 10:30 in a communal workspace, all the good spots are going to be taken.
True.
So either get up in the morning and go to work, or try to establish a presence in some place or find a corner.
Yes.
So.
Yeah, and I agree with you there because I also get here earlier because I say, hey, no, I want to be in that same spot. And the funny thing, by bringing that up, almost everybody sits in the same spot every day. It's like like a seating chart. He's going to be over there, and that person's going to be on the walking treadmill at about 2:00, but it works.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd also say take advantage of the amenities because it makes working that much more enjoyable.
True.
So I always eat the protein bars.
Free protein bars is a good thing. Coffee and tea.
Yeah. Beer on tap.
I don't do that,
but
but if you wanted to, it's there. It's good having that option.
Yeah.
So one last question for you. So how can the community of influencers, the people that are watching this video, how can they help your company, or how can they help you?
How they could help me personally would be, I would say, providing more input into how startups and entrepreneurs and companies should work. By that I mean, there's a lot of talk about entrepreneurship and how you do it and what success looks like, but there's not a lot that's been made concrete or codified. So I'm assuming some of your listeners know who Eric Ries is. He's the person who wrote the Lean Startup and more recently the Startup Way, and he's been very influential in the Lean movement. But one thing that he's done that's made entrepreneurship and small business, small startups, the way they work very tangible for me personally is that he codified a lot of that. He wrote down methods and exercises you can do. And one thing that I'm constantly doing is teaching other people methods and frameworks or coming up with new ones to solve a problem that is understood but not easily worked through.
Right.
And I still think there is so much opportunity there to just put forth exercises, simple work exercises you can do, and templates and frameworks that I think there's a lot of work that we got to do before we exhaust that space.
So if people have found some solutions, you like them to share them with you.
Yeah, absolutely. And I try to do the same, right?
Okay.
So.
And what are some ways that they can also find out, either connect with you also and or about your company?
Sure. So if you want to know more about Notified, you can go to notified.com. That's notifyd.com. And if you want to get in touch with me, I'm on LinkedIn. My name's Josh Guthrie. If you search for me, you'll recognize my face, hopefully. I can't remember the link exactly.
Yeah.
So.
Okay. Yeah. Josh, thanks again for coming out. Enjoyed our conversation and looking forward to continue our conversations either here in this scenario or out there.
Or in front of the camera.
Yes.
Thank you very much.
Cool. Thanks again. Appreciate it. Hey, I hope you enjoyed the conversation I had with Josh today and you found the information helpful for your career. So also connect with him on LinkedIn and go check out their website. And I also want to encourage you to please follow us here on Drive Influence. Thanks.